Good evening. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to the latest news update on the continent. Welcome to this all-important news forum where we give you regular updates about happenings on the continent. Focus on Liberia uses this opportunity every day to ensure that we come to you with breaking news that matter on the continent. We know Africa is an interesting continent, and on a daily basis, especially in the western part of Africa, maybe in the east, or generally in the entire uh, circumference of Africa, news emanate. But unfortunately, most of the news that are actually emanating across the continent are definitely not happening, because we have seen commotion. We have seen disharmony. We have seen nations breaking away from one part to another. We have seen foreign invasion of the continent. We are left divided with the Chinese, the Russian, the American, the British, the France mentality. Sometimes our African leaders are left into a place of not knowing exactly how to decide. And though even the government are definitely confused. So we have seen series of demonstrations, sometimes in favor of one political power, sometimes against one political power. All of those things tells you that how Africa is definitely left into a vulnerable position. We have seen leaders who support maybe Western politics because of their own connections. We have seen leaders who Western powers are actually sympathizing with because they know precisely that the more they continue having a very perfect relationship with those in power, the more they have the ability, maybe or also the opportunity to connect themselves with the wealth of those countries. And unfortunately, Africa have been carefully underdeveloped by these Western powers. And those who are left, maybe I can say enlightened, westernized, deeply urbanized, are still facing the consequences. I think we are now disintegrating to the dark days that maybe nobody thought would have actually resumed on this particular continent. It is unfortunate, it is quite amazing, and it is very, 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 very heart-draining for Africa to be experiencing coups on the continent, especially when it comes to West Africa. We have seen what developed since the early 2020 to this stage, one coup d'etat upon another one. And those things are actually swiftly taking place on the continent. We have seen how maybe divided the AU is, how divided ECOWAS is. They don't even know what to do. Some people can even tell you that ECOWAS is like a toothless bulldog that barks but does not bark. Out of the same membership of ECOWAS, we have seen how maybe elected president have been overthrown. Sometimes we may wonder why these elected presidents have been overthrown. Because maybe some of them come into power genuinely, they will promise to protect the constitution that brought them into power. Unfortunately, they will start to commit constitutional coup. And this also is giving the khaki boys the opportunity to step into power. We saw and heard that in places like Guinea, when Alpha Conde abused his power, amended the constitution fraudulently when he conducted maybe an illegal constitution, one that was not popularly backed, and fraudulently conducted the referendum, and he installed himself into power. We saw how the military kicked him up. Ouattara also did the same thing when globally the prime minister designate that would have succeeded him maybe take the country to another election, he would have actually represented his political party. When he's passed away suddenly, I don't know, Ouattara thought that in his own knowledge or wisdom that nobody is actually qualified to lead Africa with the exception of his person. So he took over. That was why when the coup d'etat took place in Guinea and that of Mali, he became so prominent. And he performed a pivotal role to ensure that those guys actually handed back power to them. Unfortunately, things like that never came to revelation. Then we also see development into maybe Burkina Faso. Now they have spilling effect in Niger. Of course, Niger, arguably, we can say it is like the center of West Africa. It shared borders with key 6 countries. And some of the countries that even share border with are into the north, taking into consideration Libya and Algeria. They are found into the north. Share border with places like Benin, Burkina Faso, Mali, and also Chad. So, including when you see these things, we are now watching at the situation where West African troops are threatening, or ECOWAS is threatening that, oh, we attack maybe Niger to ensure that President Mohamed Bazoum is being returned to power. When the soldiers attack on last before quit Wednesday, they claim that corruption, ineffectiveness of the government, the rampant maybe nature of jihadism into the country, and the government inability maybe to provide security for its citizens warranted them to take over power. ECOWAS is threatening to attack that nation led by a very old man. Maybe Bola Tinubu is too old to understand the dynamics of system or the dynamics of things. And I believe attacking Benin would be like trying to worsen a worst situation. You cannot go and worsen a worst situation. So we shouldn't worst a situation that is already in a worse stage. So we are actually craving because any attempt for ECOWAS to attack Benin was like trying to exacerbate the problem that is already being felt into the country. Nobody actually is supporting coup d'etat. Unarguably, coup d'etat is definitely wrong. In fact, there is a popular saying that the worst civilian government is the best military government. But logically speaking, Benin is already, Niger is already compounded into problems. And I believe any attempt by ECOWAS to attack Niger, they will end up to compound the situation or worsen everything that is there. And Nigerians already know, like when you watch like places like Sokoto, if you count like any 3 Nigerians, there must be a Nigerian. If you account like any 3 Nigerians, there must be, especially those coming from Sokoto State, there must be somebody who hails from Niger, and he's a Nigerian but staying into Nigeria. And Nigeria has a very vast community into Niger. So any attempt for Nigeria to lead such war will definitely endanger its citizens. And also when you watch like Burkina Faso is very unstable. It has been led by a military government, terrorists, not that experience, and they are threatening definitely to back the current Abdurrahmani government or military junta government into Niger, because logically you will understand that they are going with the notion that should ECOWAS attack Niger and succeed, maybe a next area of exploit could be places like Mali and Burkina Faso, because they are also been those countries are also been led by a junta government that took over power illegally. So they are afraid now, they are threatening to ensure that in case ECOWAS attacks Niger, they will take it as an attack on Mali and as an attack on Burkina Faso. They want to share a corporate and collective responsibility. They have definitely threatened into that. Then we all call, you watch that Mali is not peaceful, you also share borders with the same Niger. Then you also watch like Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria shares border, but it has the longest boundary or border with Niger. And most of those areas where I share borders with Niger are definitely no Kaduna, Sokoto State and others are definitely not peaceful. And most of Nigerian citizens that have fled or fleeing away from Boko Haram and other bandit attack are actually in Niger. So should Nigeria decide to attack Niger, I think they are only going to compound situation. If you watch at the northern part of Niger, you will see places like Libya and Algeria are peaceful, except that Algeria is a big peaceful, Algeria is a peaceful, but Libya is definitely not peaceful. It is being led by fashion government. So they attempt to maybe attack, maybe they will end up to create Niger. Niger will be like a habitat where maybe jihadists and other, maybe any other insurgent or Islamic movement will definitely be given birth to, and it will end up being distributed across the continent. So I think Africa need to be very careful and see what to do. That comes to today's story. In the first place, let's see. We are going into Kenya. A Kenyan minister has been arrested. A Kenyan minister and former governor, including 11 others, have actually been arrested. And they have been charged with corruption, embezzlement, and mismanagement of public funds. Funds that were actually meant to sponsor students who are Kenyans, actually having scholarship in Finland and Australia. Unfortunately, the so-called minister, Canada, the so-called minister embezzled the money, which is equivalent to $7.6 million or 11 billion Kenya shilling. So President William Ruto has ordered a swift investigation into the said alleged case, and if the minister and his cahoots are found guilty, they should not only pay back the money, but they should be prosecuted. The minister is hyping the police with the said investigation. This is what normally happens into Africa. There are times how can you take a thief to say come and share money? If you take a thief to say come and share money, I don't know. So how can you be a witch and a doctor at the same time? How do you expect yourself to be a lawyer and a judge at the same time? So it's so funny. These are people that we so trust. We entrusted our lives into their hands. We think and feel that they have the ability, the knowledgeability, the understanding, or that understandability to govern us. Unfortunately, they are the same people embezzling. And maybe we have young, energetic, vibrant Kenyan with calibrated mentality who are willing maybe to pursue their education. Unfortunately, the minister stepped in to ensure that maybe he almost always embezzle what has been given to him by the Kenyan government. Those students we are actually in Finland and Canada, some of them we have been taken out of their homes where they are studying into the dormitory because the government was no longer paying their tuitions. And the government also knew that, okay, I have given this particular money to this ministry or under the auspices of this particular person. Unfortunately, the government was actually carrying the notion that those Kenyans should not be maybe faced with any issues in terms of tuitions or their hostels are fully being paid for. So when the issues reached to the Kenyan government, the so-called former governor and current minister was summoned. He was arrested and is actually helping the police investigation. So you see, sometimes we appoint people to key positions, and they will be the very people responsible for the collapse or collapsing our nation. And I think the best way to destroy this nation is to destroy the educational system. Maybe they make those people disgruntled. Some of them will come. There are times I think our government can have good initiative. They can have constructive policies that are capable of reviving our society, laying it on a strong pillar, trying maybe to get it, especially when it comes to education, to get it more enlightened, because a nation cannot develop without strong human capital. But if you fail to monitor the system, definitely you will find yourself into hot waters, and at the end of the day, the layman will end up saying that you did nothing. So that is how that story ends, and the minister is currently helping the police investigation. So let us also come into Niger. In Niger, about 17 soldiers are actually killed by an ambush by jihadists. The Nigerian army led by Abdurrahmani saying that over 100 of the jihadists were actually killed. Yesterday they were ambushed. And I think from last week, the junta government alleged, or if not accused France of having freed some jihadists to ensure that the government was being toppled. So the junta government is saying that the situation is under control. They admitted that 70 of 8 members were killed, or part of the Nigerian armies were killed. However, 100 of those who made the attack or the attackers lost their life, and they seized some arms and ammunition on the belief that they have the capability, the vitality, maybe and also the expertise to ensure that they curb the so-called jihadist movement. And it has also managed to appoint the civilians. They have appointed 17th cabinet position, and also they have made a civilian as a prime minister. And that civilian is also in Chad, N'Djamena, with the capital city of Chad is N'Djamena. And Chad is not actually in West Africa, but Chad is in Central Africa, where it shares border with Western African countries, places like Niger. And Chad is also being led by a junta government after Idris Deby was killed in some part of 2019. That is the father of Mohamed Infantino Deby, a general who was brought into the army. He led a key faction when his dad was killed controversially. He has almost pardoned all those who are responsible, who he are alleged to have been responsible for the loss of his father at the battlefront. Nobody knows what really happened. Maybe it was not, maybe even the issue of Laurent Kabila was a bit understandable when he lost it. That he was actually killed by his own bodyguards when they used to call her STBU, and what Sierra Leone and Liberia used to call him. I don't know, SCB, what, short but old, or so they have small boys unit, something like that. Yeah, he deceived those guys, and one of them shot him, and the man who shot him was also shot on the spot. But unlike Idris Deby, things like that we are definitely not fan. But the prime minister is definitely in N'Djamena. He went there today, and he held a meeting with Mohamed Infantino Deby. He said the junta government will support any regime that sympathizes with its current ideology, and they will welcome anybody who thinks and feel that it respects the Nigerian sovereignty, and they also know that they have the constitutional right or that sovereignty to take anything. As I was speaking initially, I don't think whether Niger has a problem now, but it is not a compounded one. Should echo attack, the problem will definitely be compounded. So they should only rely on negotiation, maybe memorandum of understanding, and try to put the military into such a situation that they should understand and hand over that particular power to a civilian government. So Chad is definitely trying to ensure how an attack should not be made on Niger. But as I'm speaking, tomorrow, which is Thursday and Friday, the generals in West Africa will actually be meeting in Accra, Ghana, to discuss their next intention, because Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been accused of the one who is leading the he's a kind of a proponent for the pending attack on Niger. I think the pending attack on Niger would be maybe a dastardly act, some people will see, but it will also be a gross or costly mistake. And since it is pending, I can even say that the attack is also becoming an impending situation. So we really need to be very careful on how to handle such crises. On those generals who are meeting, they are having the backing of almost all international communities. What is actually maybe disturbing is the fact that those international communities are only enduring and also interested in withdrawing their citizens or evacuating their citizens from Niamey. They are taking them back where they are. And I believe places like Port Nouveau, the capital city of Benin, is also a bit worried, because Benin is only another maybe regime or political setup into the Sahel that is still being led by a civilian, and they know that happenings around their neighbors are definitely not favorable, and who knows what may happen. Should situation like that, if the military regime in Niger succeed to solidify in position, I think the government in Port Nouveau will also not be very happy. We know that they are not safe, because they have been led by a civilian, and around them, or they have been around the countries that surround them, are either in political crisis or being led by junta boys, and that can also throw interest to military, to Beninese. So I feel and think that the Beninese are also worried, and Port Novo is definitely not happy. Africa is alerted. We are definitely maybe moving from a very worse situation, backwardness. Darkness is gripping the continent. We really, really need to be very careful on seeing maybe how to handle those issues. Let's go into Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, the Oromia region is actually being accusing the government of Abiy Ahmed, who took over some parts early in 2018. He was actually applauded for re-establishing a good relationship with places like Eritrea and also opening phone lands. Unfortunately, he fought a very bitter war with the Tigray region, that is TPF, the Tigray People Liberation Party, like under Emperor Menelik and also Haile Selassie. We all know that they play a very key role in seeing when you see like Emperor Menelik and others, people will tell you that he is responsible, or he's a modern day Ethiopia. God, the founding father of modern day Ethiopia. He actually modernized Ethiopia. So Abiy Ahmed, being from the Amara tribe, now he's fighting the second region in Ethiopia, the Amara region, is fighting against them. The Oromia are also accusing of actually maybe carrying extrajudicial killing. After he fell out with the Tigray people, they have reintegrated the Tigrayans into the society. Maybe trying to work with the government in Makele. Then disarmament actually took place. But the people in the Amhara region, we are actually worried a bit because they think and feel that most of the weapons that should have been handed over by the Tigrayan forces, we are not handed over. And the government, of the central government of Abiy Ahmed, was actually forcing them to ensure that they also carry out such disarmament. And then we are thinking that such thing will put them into a disadvantageous position. Should the TPLF decide to attack them, especially when they fought bitter war against themselves, that would be very vulnerable. So they have some stand-up, and it has resulted into bitter war. Women are being killed, raped, and we have listened to several interviews, especially from Steven Saka, the man that normally does BBC Hard Talk interview. If you listen to those things, there are some dire stories that have been told. When you get down into BBC Hard Talk podcast, you get all of these things. So it's a very sad event, and we're praying and hoping that maybe that situation should not degenerate or escalate into a situation that happened with the TPFL. And Abiy Ahmed is being seen as a stubborn grasshopper on the helms of Ethiopia, and he thinks and feels that maybe he can solidify or unify Ethiopia through the barrel. But maybe he got power through civilian means. I don't know why is he interested in using the barrel. Everybody thought that the coming of Abiy Ahmed would have been a very pacifying one. Unfortunately, of late, we have seen a lot of maybe political situation developing into the continent that is definitely not pampering, especially when it comes to the Horn of Africa. So we are hoping that things like that should not continue. Let's come into sport. Chelsea have agreed deal with Galatasaray to sell Hakim Ziyech. Hakim Ziyech joins Chelsea for 33.3 million euro in some part of 2020. He appeared for Chelsea 107 times. He was not used in Chelsea's latest Champions League win over Manchester City in 2021. But he played pivotal role. He suffered a series of injuries during his days at Chelsea. Some part of January this year, he would have actually gone to PSG. Unfortunately, after passing his medical, it was alleged that the papers that Chelsea would have signed to ensure that the Moroccan or the North African actually found his way into Paris Saint-Germain, at this PSG France. We are sent but late. by Chelsea, and by the time those signed paper arrived, the transfer window was also closed. So Hakim Ziyech came back disgruntled at Chelsea. You can see the dejection into his person. He was disenchanted, a disorganized fellow, thinking about what he went through. He had wanted irregular football. Unfortunately, he did not get his wish. And in the opening days of the league in January, we saw Graham Potter, which was the English coach that Chelsea hired, actually started him in his one of his leagues in January. I just forgot the team he played, but he could not maintain his role when Toboli took over after he bought the club from Roman Abramovich. He made series of signing, and Ziyech and others who have been accused of maybe not having a wish to play for the club. So a total overhaul is taking place, and Ziyech happens to be one of the victims. And today, he also, in some part of this month, he tried to go to AC Milan, but he's failed his medical. Now he's trying to go to Turkey. Well, shows you understand that Turkey just suffered huge earthquake, where we have the like of Christian Astu, who was actually another Chelsea attacker. He lost in life. He was actually playing for Fenerbahce. He lost in life in Turkey. And we are also seeing Hakim Ziyech, a Moroccan, joining actually Galatasaray from Chelsea. Chelsea have definitely agreed an undisclosed fee. So which Hakim Ziyech safe joining to Morocco, to Galatasaray in Turkey. And I believe that the government of Erdogan we definitely end up to protect our brothers and sisters who are actually there, because it's also another controversial regime that nobody can definitely predict. Finally, we end our news broadcast in Nigeria. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has assured the Nigerians that fuel prices, that mean gasoline or petrol, diesel, and kerosene will not go up as predicted, although the Naira is plummeting. The Naira inflation is going on a daily basis, and when Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over in his inaugural speech, he cancelled or withdrew the fuel subsidy, which resulted into protests, teachers threatening to only work 2 days per week, and he also met shortage of liquid cash, and he threatened to end military regime on the continent. We have seen just after that the like of Niger retaliated by overthrowing their government. Now we are seeing this figure threatening to invade Niger. It's having compounded issues. So Nigeria, if she cannot solve her own, she cannot solve the problem of Africa, neither can she solve the problem of her neighbor. So Nigerians, according to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will not witness the hike of fuel prices for the time being. However, it has not completed in negotiations with the so-called fair entrepreneurs, and they are also threatening maybe to close down their station if the government cannot meet its demand. So far so good. The situation is a bit fragile, and we pray and hope that it should not have a spilling effect on others. Thank you. It's been me, Amara, focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development in the continent. Join me back on Friday, same place, same time. Good night.